You do not live life. Life lives you. The beating of your heart, the billowing of your lungs, the coursing of thought, the whole shimmering business is not a machine you operate from a hidden control room, but a tide moving as you. Control is the dream of a clenched fist. Life is the open hand that holds nothing and therefore loses nothing. The world is not a ladder to climb, but a dance to join, and the moment you try to steer the rhythm like a tyrant, you step on your own feet and call it fate. You imagine that somewhere behind your eyes sits a little manager barking orders. Tighten here, avoid that, secure this, defend me. Yet the manager is a voice woven out of echoes, a mirage conjured by habit. When you stop to listen, you notice that life, trees circling through seasons, rivers answering gravity's invitation, clouds composing and dissolving their soft epics, moves without injunction or judge. And so do you when you stop pretending otherwise. You've been told that safety lies in control, as though the universe were a stubborn mule to be harnessed. But control is a story we tell when we're afraid to feel the music. The rain does not schedule its arrival, and still flowers appear. A newborn does not read manuals to breathe, yet the breath knows its own path. There is a wider wisdom here, an unteachable fluency, and you are the grammar of it. You are not a stranger to the world. You are the world playing at being a stranger, like the ocean casting up waves that forget for a moment they are water. When a wave tries to hold its crest, it breaks. When it yields, it becomes the sea again. So let us begin with the scandalous proposition that your effort to command life is the very knot that tightens around your throat. You think control will spare you from uncertainty, yet it multiplies your anxieties. You think control will produce love, yet it makes relationships brittle. Like glass gripped too hard. The secret isn't to seize the moment, but to let the moment seize you. Not to master the steps, but to trust the rhythm that has been coursing through your veins since before you learned your name. And if this sounds perilous, notice how exhausting your old strategy has been, how days become armored drills and nights assemblies of worry. Tell the truth. Do you really steer the wind, or do you merely tense against it? Now, this is not an argument for passivity. It is an invitation to participate differently, to dance. In dance, you do not push the music, you give yourself to it. You respond, you play, you become available to improvisation. The art is not in freezing the future, but in widening your sensitivity to what is moving now. This breath, this conversation, this heartbeat, this glimmer in the eye of a stranger. In that surrender, there is a paradox. You feel more alive, more potent, not less. For potency is not domination. It is intimacy with what is. And to become intimate with life, you loosen the grip that keeps you apart from the very pulse that wants to move through you. Let us wander into that intimacy, slowly, like stepping barefoot into a stream and discovering it is not cold, but exactly the temperature of your own blood. And as we wade, notice how the mind keeps asking, what if I lose control? The answer is simple. You cannot lose what you never had. But you can discover something better, the effortless intelligence already dancing you. Let's find it together, step by step, without forcing, without resisting, letting the music draw us further in. Consider how you breathe when you are anxious. The breath grows shallow, the ribcage stiffens, the belly retreats. In your attempt to manage the moment, you barricade yourself against it, turning the living flow into a guarded corridor. But watch a sleeping child, a dog in the sun. Light, the belly rises and falls like a small tide, yielding to the body's wisdom. Life breathes itself. The great hint is that your organism and the environment are not two parties negotiating a truce. They are a single pattern unfolding, like a whirlpool in a river. You can point to a shape, give it a name, even photograph it, but it is made entirely of the water around it. The tighter the whirlpool tries to be separate, the quicker it dissolves. The dance is the identity. You have been taught to stand outside of experience, to be the inspector of your own life, as though the meaning of a symphony could be caught by freezing one note and measuring it with calipers. Yet the music is in the movement, the meaning in the mutual vibration of tone and silence. Life similarly refuses to be a specimen. When you try to pin it down, it dies in your hands. When you let it go, it alights on your shoulder and sings. There is an old game we play with ourselves, a game of hide and seek. We pretend to be the lonely controller, separated from the world, that we may enjoy the surprise of discovering we were the world all along. This is not a doctrine to be believed, but a taste to be savored. Sit quietly and listen to sounds without labels, the hum in the room, a distant bird, your own pulse crescents in your ears. Notice that the listening and the sound are one movement. The division appears only when thought asserts, I am hearing that. Prior to the assertion, there is only hearing, vibration, and awareness as a single event. In that seamlessness, control has no foothold and is not missed. You may say, but surely we must plan, decide, take action. Of course, the dancer changes steps, the surfer angles the board, the potter centers the clay. But action does not require an iron tyranny. It calls for responsiveness. When the dancer tries to memorize the future, the body stiffens. When the dancer trusts the rhythm, the body knows. Planning is simply the dance extending itself forward, reward like a cat's whiskers sensing what's next. Decision is the moment the music takes a turn and you go with it. Action is your body's way of letting life have its say through your hands. Letting go is often misunderstood as dropping responsibility. It is, in fact, the only way to be genuinely responsible, because you stop clinging to a predetermined image and meet the situation as it is. Imagine holding a bar of wet soap. Grip too tightly and it shoots away. Hold too loosely and it slips. Cradle it with alert ease and it rests, ready to be used. The mind works much the same way. The middle way is not dull moderation, but attentive poise, relaxed spine, awake senses, unhurried clarity. From this poise comes sudden insight, a laughter that bubbles up when you see how you had been wrestling with your own reflection. Control is the refusal to die in the small ways each moment asks of you. Every conversation asks you to die to your last opinion. Every sunset asks you to die to your attachment to daylight. Every exhale asks you to die to the inhale you loved so much. The tiny deaths keep you alive. The refusal to die hardens you into a statue that looks like you but cannot dance. To dance with life is to consent to these little vanishings and to find, to your astonishment, that nothing essential is lost. What is essential does not resist change. It performs change. Consider time. We burden it with schedules and chase it as though it were running away. But time is not a conveyor belt carrying us out of the present toward a better future. It is the very radiance of the present unfolding as novelty. When you try to control time, you miss time. When you live as time, this stretch of now being now, you move with it, and you discover that what you called patience is simply intimacy with the process. A blossom is not procrastinating while it forms. A conversation is not delay. Ed because it pauses. The heart is not inefficient because it rests between beats. The alternation is the music. If this seems lofty, bring it down to breakfast. You pour tea. Steam spirals upward. The teaspoon sings against porcelain. There is a small thrill in the wrist as you stir. This is not a practice to improve yourself. It is the revelation that you are not separate from the swirl. The taste of tea is the universe tasting itself through your tongue. Dance with that, and your day begins as a festival rather than a march. And when trouble arrives, and it will because waves keep arriving, you meet it as surf rather than as cement. You tilt your board, feel the pull, and let gravity and water teach you the next move. The line between fear and exhilaration is your willingness to play. Let's keep moving then, from the poetry of the thing to the craft of it, without leaving the music behind. How then to live this in the marketplace of appointments, arguments, invoices, and heartbreak? Start with the body, the faithful teacher. When tension appears, tight jaw, clenched belly, narrowed eyes, do not command it to relax like a drill sergeant. That is control sneaking in, wearing a wellness uniform. Instead, become curious. Bring attention to the sensation as if it were a guest at your table. Tightness in the throat. You're here. Attend to the breath as it arrives and leaves, not pushing or pulling. In that attentive hospitality, tightness often unravels of its own accord, And even when it stays, your relationship to it changes. You are no longer fighting a war inside your skin. In conversation, practice the art of yes and, not as obedience, but as a dance step. Yes acknowledges what is present, and moves with it. Your partner speaks with heat. You notice your defensiveness arrive like a storm front. You breathe and respond, not to win, but to keep the music going. Paradoxically, when you stop trying to control the outcome, you speak more truthfully because you're not distorting reality to fit an agenda. Honesty is what happens when listening leads, and listening is impossible while gripping the reins. Make space each day to do one thing inefficiently. Peel an orange with reverence. Walk without destination for 10 minutes, letting your feet choose corners like fish following light. Efficiency is a marvel when serving love. It becomes a tyrant when it replaces love. By deliberately stepping out of optimization, you remind yourself that you are not a productivity machine, but a living poem. When confronted with uncertainty, treat it as a horizon rather than an enemy camp. The sailor does not demand that the sea reveal its entire map before leaving harbor. The sailor sets a course and then learns the water by touching it. You can set intentions, beautiful, clear, daring intentions, and then watch, hands relaxed on the wheel, as wind and current teach you the path that cannot be printed on any chart. If the wind changes, your dignity is not wounded, your sails simply turn. This is the wisdom of participation. Work itself becomes lighter when you see it as a particular rhythm in the grand composition. There is the rhythm of focus and the rhythm of rest, the rhythm of private craft and the rhythm of shared creation. If you try to control these rhythms by refusing half of them, you end up with fatigue disguised as virtue. Instead, let the alternation animate you. Schedule, yes, but schedule breathing room into your schedule. The best notes in music are the ones that are not played, the spacious rests that make the melody possible. If you cannot find rest in your calendar, find it in one breath fully taken. That single moment will remind you that spaciousness is a quality of attention before it is a block of time. What of fear, the intimate shadow of being alive? Do not attempt to annihilate it. Fear is not your enemy. It is your body whispering, "Pay attention." Thank it and then ask, to what? Often the answer is surprise. Concrete, a boundary to clarify, a skill to learn, a grief to feel, a story to retire. By listening, you convert fear from tyrant to tutor. And when fear brings you no clear instruction, treat it like weather. You do not scold the rain. You wear a coat, or you dance in it. Practice also the small art of relinquishment. Once a day, put down something you habitually grasp, a certainty, a complaint, a possession past its season. Give away a book you will not reread. Release a plan that is chewing your stomach. Say aloud, "I don't know," and notice that the ceiling does not fall. Each relinquishment creates room for a fresh breeze. You discover that letting go is not a plunge into emptiness, but a return to circulation. Notice the subtle joy that arises when you stop pretending to be the puppet master. You laugh more easily, not because life has become easier, but because you recognize the comedy, the universe dancing extravagantly as trees, whales, cities, thunderstorms, and then this marvelous twist, pretending to be you, trying to manage the dance. Once you see it, you can't help but smile at your own seriousness. The smile is not cynical, it is compassionate. You forgive yourself for having been so frightened, and in that forgiveness you become more skillful. Not because you control better, but because you interfere less. Finally, bring this to the moment of decision. Stand in quiet, feel your feet, attend to the breath, listen for the simplest, honest impulse. Not the compulsive avoidance of pain, not the grandiose pursuit of immortality, but the next true step. Sometimes it is to speak, sometimes to remain silent, sometimes to move, sometimes to be still. Trust that the same intelligence which turns seed into forest can be trusted with your day. You are not outsourcing your life to fate. You are recognizing that fate is the name we give to the wider pattern that includes you as a willing partner. And as you partner with it, something soft and luminous opens, like dawn Li, earning the contours of a hillside. We are almost ready to speak about the deepest shift. where the dancer realizes that the music, the dance, and the dancer are not three. There is a moment, perhaps in the hush before sleep, perhaps in the shock after loss, perhaps for no reason at all, when the mask loosens. The face you have worn, the name stitched from family and promises, sags for a heartbeat, and through the seams you glimpse a vastness that is not other than you. Call it awareness, call it the ground, call it nothing at all. It does not argue, it does not judge, it does not need improvement. It is the stage on which every character appears and vanishes, including the character called me. To awaken is not to become holy. It is to recognize the costume as costume and the stage as home. Then you can play your part with a light heart, because you no longer mistake the role for the actor. This recognition dissolves the panic that demands control. For who exactly was trying to control? A thought trying to steer other thoughts, a ripple lecturing the pond. When the ripple remembers it is water, it doesn't stop being a ripple. It simply relaxes into the wider wetness. You still plan, love, work, argue, make tea, make amends, but the anxious center has gone out of it. You become porous, which is another word for free. This is not detachment in the sense of aloofness. It is intimacy without possession, participation without compulsion. You belong to everything, so you no longer need everything to belong to you. The human condition, seen this way, is a festival of appearances. Birth and death are gates in the same fence. Suffering and joy are seasons in the same year. When you resist one and clutch the other, you turn the wheel against itself. When you bow to both, the wheel becomes a caravan, carrying your heart across the desert with songs. The meaning of life is not high. Then in an equation. It is revealed in the willingness to taste, to touch, to be touched, to lose, and to find in the same gesture. You discover that growth is not a climb to a summit, but a widening circle of permission to feel, to fail, to forgive, to flourish. Ego is not destroyed, it is put back in its place, useful like a tool, lovely like a mask, dangerous only when it insists on being your face. From here, relationships sweeten. You stop auditioning others for roles in your private script and meet them as they are. Astonishing, changeable, unscriptable. Love ceases to be a negotiation of needs and becomes the shared willingness to be surprised. Even grief, when it arrives with its faithful gravity, is no longer an enemy. It is the proof that you have dared to love and the river that carves new tenderness into your canyon. You weep, not as a collapse, but as rain that belongs to the weather of a full life. Now let us land in a meditative quiet, not as an escape from the world, but as a more intimate embrace of it. Sit as you are. Feel the ground support you without asking for anything in return. Let the breath move like a tide, drawing silk through your ribs. Notice the chorus of sensations, distant and near. Behind them and within them, a silence that is not the absence of sound, but the spaciousness that receives it all. Rest as that spaciousness. Thoughts arrive like birds, make their brief music, and fly on. Let them. Emotions swell and recede like tides under a moon you cannot control. Trust that the shore knows how to receive them. If you find yourself tightening, smile softly, and return to the simple miracle that anything is happening at all. Ask yourself, quietly, not as a puzzle, but as a fragrance, who is breathing? Who is hearing these words? Let the question sink without an answer. Let it open a window. Notice that the hearer is not a solid point, but a vast listening in which even the sense of I appears and disappears. In this listening there is no one left to be safe, and therefore nothing left to be threatened. There is only the dance. The body sways on its own. The heart keeps time. Life leads. When you rise, rise gently. Wash a cup as if the sky were watching through your hands. Speak in such a way that your words leave room for others to breathe. Walk as though the earth were an old friend, and you were glad to feel its arm in yours. And when plans shift, when the wind changes, when loss knocks, bow to the doorway and step through, allowing the next movement to teach you the next step. This is not resignation. It is participation of the highest order. It is wisdom wearing ordinary clothes. Remember, you do not live life. Life lives you. Surrender your claim on the reins, and you will discover that you are not a passenger either. You are the dance, you are the dancer, you are the music. Control was the story. Freedom is the rhythm, and there, in the rhythm, you will find the courage to laugh, to love, to let go, and to begin again, as many times as the day asks. Let it carry you now, and let each breath be your consent